Thank you. Friends, I want to start with an English word, which I understand is also a Dutch word. Sorry. Sorry, ik spreek geen Nederlands. Maar D66 kan ik heel goed. It's a pleasure to be with you here in Zwolle. And it's a privilege to be among friends who have stayed loyal to liberalism. This weekend, liberals have a lot to celebrate. Barack Obama's victory in the United States is a triumph for American liberals, and it's a message of hope over cynicism. What were the odds? What were the odds that a black man from Hawaii with a Muslim father from Kenya would take on America's conservative establishment and win? Who 10 years ago, even 10 months ago, would have placed a bet on that? But that is what Obama has achieved, and America and the world are better for it. So belief in a liberal future can this week be stronger than ever. And we can make that future ours. We start with next year's European elections. When I was elected to lead our group in the European Parliament, we had fewer than 50 members. Today, our alliance of Liberals and Democrats for Europe has 100 MEPs, the largest liberal group in the history of the European Parliament. But I'm not satisfied with that, and I know you're not satisfied either, because we remain the third largest group in Brussels and Strasbourg. And our ambitions go beyond third-party status. We need more liberals and more Democrats from across Europe. And if the American Democrats have their superstars, well, we certainly have ours. Alexander Pechtold, a man of principle, poise, and experience, a man whose sound judgment serves liberalism well. It is no coincidence that Alexander was last year's Dutch Politician of the Year, and it is no coincidence that this party is coming up and up in the opinion polls. And I have no doubt that Alexander will lead your party to great success in the coming years. In the European Parliament, too, you've been distinguished by some leading lights of liberalism. I've had the great pleasure to work with Bertens and Brinkhorst and Bogert and Duke Eisma and the dashing Bob van den Bos and the lovely Luzevies. And in Sophie In 't Veld, you have one of the most determined and defiant liberals that I have had the good fortune to work with. Sophie is passionate in pursuit of the values we hold dear: honesty, justice, freedom. She is undeterred by the obstacles that others put in the path of progressive politics. She has earned her place at the top of your list of candidates. And when Sophie is returned to the European Parliament next year, I know that she will fight for the things we believe in. Things like sustainability, the focus of your conference today. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but I guess it's Hoed zo duurzaam or something like that. You understand that our climate, our biosphere, our natural resources, all of these are under threat from the frenzy of consumption which grips the modern world. And fighting for a sustainable future is no easy matter. Tough choices are going to be needed for public policy makers. Number one, should we raise taxes to cut consumption? Number two, should we put public money into protecting our grandchildren at the expense of caring for our grandparents? Number three, should we place limits on some freedoms in order to protect other kinds of freedom. These are difficult issues that demand determined leadership, and the D66 has a proud record in providing that leadership. But you know that we cannot confront these challenges if countries act alone, because the ecosystem does not stop at national boundaries. Global sustainability is under threat, supranational action is required, and Europe must lead the way. The European Union is unique among global actors. We alone have the size, the capacity, and the will to lead in the race to defuse the ecological time bomb. And I am proud that the European Union's leaders have committed as a first step to cut carbon emissions by 20% by the year 2020. And I will make sure that through Liberal Democrat action in the European Parliament, we build on that deal by agreeing a comprehensive climate change package next month. We have a lot to do, and the onus must not just be on government policy. People need to change their priorities too, each and every one of us. We live in a society where many people change their mobile phones every 6 months, their iPods annually, and their cars with breathtaking regularity. Now, some say that is a good thing, because we know that consumption drives economic growth, and growth should make us wealthier and therefore happier. But growth also churns out carbon emissions, it creates mountains of waste, it empties the earth of its finite resources, and these things do not make us happy. You know, gross domestic product is a fine measure of how much money is circulating, but it does not measure the money needed to mitigate climate catastrophe. It does not calculate the biospheric impact of losing animal and plant life, and it does not measure the human misery that comes with drought or flooding or hurricanes. Rapid, unsustainable growth will surely continue to drive the climate change that causes all of these things. And let me remind you how fast growth is moving. It has taken us all of human history for the global economy to reach its current size. On present trends, even allowing for the recession, it will take just 20 years to double the size of the global economy. As a liberal, I admire the market. I applaud the instinct to work hard and enjoy the benefits that that brings. And I believe that growth is something we've to look at closely, because there are plenty of opportunities ahead for green growth, especially in what our scientists are calling biomimicry, copying the way that nature does things. Jobs, products, export opportunities can be gained from investment in energy, technology, and innovation, which works with the grain of nature, not against it. But if growth is fueled by careless and conspicuous consumption, we will continue to wreak havoc for the future of humankind. Let me ask you a question. Who was it? Who was it who said, "All for ourselves and nothing for other people seems in every age of the world to have been the maxim of the masters of mankind"? It was not Karl Marx, it was Adam Smith. So liberals should not be afraid to grapple with the issues of growth. Of course we want a healthy, thriving economy, but we need to make people see that they can do something for tomorrow's people by consuming less and wasting less today. And that will call for a cultural change and for politicians with the courage to campaign for restraint rather than extravagance. For we live in a world of finite resources and an ecosystem with finite time. Sustainability and the fight against climate change are at the heart of what it means to be a liberal today. I look forward to the day when D66 is back in government, turning green priorities into government policy. You know, the Netherlands needs your liberal leadership, and Europe needs it too, because this country has a proud history as the liberal lodestar of Europe, pioneering liberal policies which have spread throughout our continent: tolerance, gay rights, the right to birth control. Where the Netherlands has led, others have followed. And as an outward-looking nation, with liberal internationalism, the Netherlands' commitment to European integration has never been in doubt. As a founding member, you have invested a great deal in creating our European Union. A recent study by your Centraal Planbureau showed that Dutch citizens profit twice as much from the internal market as the average European citizen. For a typical family, that means 8,000 euros a year. I think that is a worthy return on a valuable investment. But I see that even here in the Netherlands, things have changed, and the European Union is feeling the effects. Under your current leadership, government in the Netherlands is more Eurosceptical, more protectionist, and more conservative than it ever was under D66 and the VVD. The Dutch government is no longer a force for European ideas. It applies the brakes on European progress. Let me give you just 3 examples from recent months. Thanks to pressure from Liberals and Democrats, the European Commission has brought forward an anti-discrimination directive, a law that would guarantee our citizens equal treatment regardless of factors like age or faith or sexual orientation. Laws that already exist in the Netherlands, but which would protect Dutch citizens throughout the rest of the European Union. But the Netherlands government opposes it. A Liberal commissioner has proposed a directive on the free movement of patients, medical patients, allowing European citizens to receive medical treatment in other member states without having to pay for it themselves or cope with bundles of paperwork. It would allow citizens of the Netherlands to get treatment in the hospital that suits them best and to avoid any waiting lists at home for the treatment they need now. But the Dutch government opposes this measure. And Liberals have asked the European Commission to consider whether these new body scanners at European airports are violating the dignity of passengers. These scanners, as you pass through them, strip people of their clothes and project a naked image onto a screen. I believe they are a violation of citizens' rights to privacy, and Liberals and Democrats have asked the Commission to do something about it. But, according to Hirsch-Ballin, the Dutch government opposes that too. Now, I know that since 9/11, security has been the password that has allowed governments on both sides of the Atlantic to clamp down on the freedoms of citizens, exchanging data over airline passengers, setting up invasive body scans are just the latest in a long line of abuses. Abuses that Sophie and other Liberal colleagues have done so much to highlight and to expose. I believe that citizens need protection from the state just as much as they need protection by the state. So the European Commission should take the opportunity to speak up for citizens' rights, and Europe should seize the opportunity to work with a new Liberal president in the White House to examine the balance between security and freedom. And if Barroso and Balkenende and their friends in the European People's Party are too afraid to use the European Union to stand up to America, then we must speak out. Liberals should not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to criticize the European Union when it should do better. You know, as Mark Twain wrote of Wagner's music, it's not as bad as it sounds, but there's a lot that can be improved. Our world faces so many challenges: cross-border crime, population growth, energy security. But in Europe, we no longer confront them alone. We work together, and it works. In August, we kept the tanks out of Tbilisi. In October, we kept the banks in business. Next month, we take the campaign against climate change a big step forward. You know, there are many on the right wing of politics, and even some on the left, who look at our globalized world and they see only problems and threats. And their reaction is to pull up the drawbridge, to create a fortress Europe. But liberals look at globalization, and we see opportunities and solutions. We are a drawbridge down party, confident, ambitious, outward-looking, universal and internationalist, as liberal thinkers always have been. The ideas that we need for the 21st century. And that's why the future for D66 is so bright. You have the ideas, you have the people, you have the strength to take the helm of Dutch politics and re-establish liberalism as the driving force in the Netherlands, and we will do so too, inspired by you in re-establishing liberalism as the driving force of politics across Europe. Thank you.